Hello again, everybody, and good evening. Welcome live to episode 28 of VIBELAND Sports, a weekly media presentation of VIBELAND, Inc. I'm Todd Miller, joined in studio by Casady Fletcher and Kelby Peterson. Guys, it just seems like the week zips by in between episodes, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah. I don't mind it at all.
I don't either. Got a good show for you. We're going to have a guest today. Grant Gower, the Director of Officials for the OSSAA here in Oklahoma, will join us. That's in our second segment. Casady, you and I have had a chance to know and work with Grant for a long time. As good a guy as there is, and certainly a great interview. He could host this podcast and put us all out of business, but it's good to have him on our show here today.
Oh, absolutely. And big thank you to Grant out there for coming on the pod and just giving us a great interview and kind of an inside look at an occupation that a lot of people take for granted, I think.
I think you offered some really interesting insight, too, that we don't get to see a lot of as fans of the sport. We're watching the coaches and the players, and it was an interesting perspective to hear it from the other side, I guess you would say.
Well, he comes in at a critical time, not only in Oklahoma but across the country, because there's a major league shortage of officials, and it's going to start affecting where games are played. And if they're played at all, perhaps in the future, it is definitely a big-time problem. Grant will join us segment number 2. We're going to talk about the NFL. Is officiating starting to make the games unwatchable? Drew Brees is out. Ben Roethlisberger is out. A former Cowboy will get his first NFL start. How about the Cowboys and Chiefs? We'll discuss them. Yes, folks. Antonio Brown back in the news. And we'll talk about Oklahoma and Oklahoma State as well. Don't forget, we encourage you to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at VIBELAND Sports, also on Facebook, VIBELAND Sports. And if you haven't already done so, subscribe to our podcast. You'll get a notification when every episode drops, either through Apple Podcast or Spotify. All right, let's begin with the National Football League. We'll begin with the Dallas Cowboys, who are 2-0. KP, you and I were talking about earlier, I think they're one of the best teams in the NFL. I think now they have a real legitimate shot maybe to make the Super Bowl. But let's pump the brakes a little bit because they played their 2 worst teams in their division, and they played 2 of the worst teams in the NFC. But past Cowboys don't beat those bad teams like this edition has handled them in the first 2 weeks.
Exactly like you said. I mean, it's a little bit of fool's gold. This team is good, and we predicted them to advance pretty far in the playoffs, so it's not like we didn't see this coming. But as a Cowboys fan, I said before the season starts, when you see the first 3 games are the Giants, Redskins, and Dolphins, you think you better start 3-0. And if you go to 4-0 or 3-1, I think that's a pretty decent start based on who you're playing. But in the NFL, guys, you got to get wins when you can take them. So just because it's been a easy schedule to start with, the schedule doesn't get easier. Trust me, it just gets more difficult as the season goes on and as injuries come and diversity comes. There's multiple opportunities to lose these easy games and let the season slowly get away from you. So it's important to collect wins when you can, especially late in the year when you're trying to not only make a playoff push, but secure home field advantage. And in my opinion, avoid the wild card. So you got to get the wins when you can. I'll take them. And, the next week coming up, we've got the Dolphins, which I would say is maybe the worst team in the NFL, not just this year, but possibly ever. So, I mean, it would be devastating if they lose that game, but I like the way they're playing right now. The offense seems to be clicking. Kellen Moore's offense seems to be working. I like what he's doing. I like that Dak ran the ball a little bit this week. We haven't seen that from him, and I like what Dak's doing in his last, I think he said 9 starts. He's 8-1 in his last 9 starts, so I'm liking what I'm seeing from Dak and the Cowboys moving forward.
That's where I was going with you, Casady. I'm critical of Dak Prescott. I'm still not a total believer of him. Okay? But if you're going to criticize somebody and you think you're right in doing it, by golly, you better be able to step on the other side of the fence and give some praise where it's due. And right now, there's not a better quarterback, maybe with the exception of Mahomes, in the NFL at the level that Prescott is playing right now.
Oh, my goodness. He's been incredible. What he's been able to do, distributing the ball to all the different Cowboys receivers, getting in, making it happen on his feet, like you were saying, when he needs to now. That's another little wrinkle that he's starting to throw in there. And, I mean, again, you want to always put a big asterisk next to it because of the teams that he's playing against. But at the same time, he's still going out there and putting up those numbers, and he's still just, dominating games and being the kind of guy that can command the kind of salary that he's trying to get here. And I don't know what has changed. I give a lot of credit to Kellen Moore and his system. I think
that's the difference.
Right.
that's
I think he's
it's
got a
gotta
lot
be.
more freedom now. And it's obviously working for him. And the system is designed to make life easy for Dak. And he's making the game look very easy right now.
Let's think about this. Ezekiel Elliott, and you expected him to not be at his best, having not been in training camp. But he has not been anywhere close to the Ezekiel Elliott we're going to see later in the year. And the Cowboys' defense, that's right. And the Cowboys' defense, while has not played great, they certainly have not been bad. And yet you're 2-0 with 2 dominating victories against teams that, like I said, sometimes in the past the Cowboys tend to struggle against.
And the thing about these wins too, guys, is if you look back over the last few seasons with the Cowboys, it's the games they're winning are close. I mean, I'm talking one score, less than 10 points. It's been nice to kind of have these blowouts, and I mean blowouts in the NFL standard, and to get in the victory formation. It's been nice to do that. As a Cowboys fan, you're kind of used to seeing that last-minute drive set up, construct your timeouts just so right so you can get a last-second field goal attempt, or have Dak try to save you, or, going back further, have Romo try to save you. That's kind of been the Cowboy way. So it's been nice to see to get these wins, because like I said earlier, in the NFL, you take them when you get them, and to win comfortably, I'm really enjoying seeing so far.
Here's the other thing. That win looks even better right now. And I'll tell you why, because while the Cowboys were flying Casady back to Dallas yesterday, a lot of the competition, at least early in the season's fallen apart.
Oh, yeah.
I picked the New Orleans Saints to go to the Super Bowl. May not happen now. Drew Brees is out 6 weeks with a thumb injury that he's going to have surgery probably later in the week. And then the Philadelphia Eagles, just absolutely decimated by injuries last night, still had enough in the tank to almost come back and win at Atlanta, which is not an easy feat to do. But if the Eagles have a lot of serious injuries, the Cowboys right now, and again, I know it's just 2 weeks, but boy, they're sitting really pretty in the NFC East.
They are, because like you're saying, you got to get the wins while you can in the NFL, and the Cowboys kind of have a bit of an easy schedule because of injuries now on the front end of the schedule. So they have a chance to build a sizable lead in the division and even in the NFC overall. I think now all of a sudden you've gone from trying to just compete for an NFC East championship to now you're looking at fighting for a 1 or a 2 seed. I think that's really what the difference in all these different injuries and everything. If the Cowboys can capitalize early on in this season and really get out there and win a lot of these early games, because it gets a lot harder. And if Drew Brees starts coming back, and you might have to face him in the playoffs, and I think they'll find a way to still get there. And so you're going to have to face all these teams and with a full strength at some point in the season. So take advantage now while you can.
Todd's fantasy tip of the week. Grab every single Dallas Cowboy player that you can get. If you don't own them, get them off the waiver wire, because they're all going to play, and they're all probably going to have great games this week against the Miami Dolphins. It is unbelievable to me how bad a team in the NFL can be in the state that the Miami Dolphins are right now.
I don't want to give away, speaking of fantasy, I don't want to give away any hot fantasy tips here, because my strategy for the rest of the year is
I didn't give away a hot tip. I'm just telling you, if you haven't thought about it, do it, because I think about everybody else is loading up on Cowboys.
Well, here's the hot tip. Whatever defense is playing the Dolphins that week, go ahead and make that your starting defense that week in fantasy, because they're going to get some points. Yeah, it's bad, and I hate to see it, because I wanted to see some Fitz magic this year, and I believed in Fitz magic. And I just don't believe in tanking in the NFL. There is not one player that can change your team that drastically. That, I think, is a far-fetched idea in the NBA, but at least more possible. There's no Zion Williamsons coming out of the NFL, out of college football next year. I mean, Tua's going to be great, but he's not a franchise immediate changer. So I don't understand the philosophy behind it. It's kind of disgusting to me, to be honest. And I mean, I'll take the W next week, but at the same time, like, if you're a team that loses to the Dolphins this year, that's kind of a season killer. No matter how well you do, you still lost to the Dolphins.
Do you guys think that the Dolphins will go 0-16? Now, before you laugh at me, that's pretty darn hard to do. If you remember the last team to do it, the Detroit Lions, and they almost had to
Yeah.
work hard.
Didn't the Browns do it like
They
3
did.
years ago?
They did. You're right. The Browns and the Lions are the last two teams to do
Yeah.
it. It just seems so hard that you don't sneak up on somebody 1 week.
I mean,
I'm going to tell you, I think they do go on 16.
the Browns weren't trying, and they went. Hugh Jackson was 1-32, right?
Yeah.
Or 1-31.
1-31.
1-31, and he was trying to win. So it's possible to go 0-16, but you're right.
hard
It's
to
the
do.
NFL. It's just like everybody's got a day. There's the injuries line up, the stars align, the game plans work.
And the
It
worse
just-
the Dolphins look on the scoreboard week in and week out, the more likely is somebody takes it,
Right.
just completely overlooks it.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
They treat him as a joke, and they come in there
And that's the game the Dolphins show up and they're sick of being treated like a joke.
Right.
And yeah, the Dolphins' score differential this year, their point differential is 102-10. So we are approaching week 3. So they've already almost been outscored by 100. They are going to break records this year, and not the kind that they're going to be proud of.
All right, let's move to the AFC, the Kansas City Chiefs. A lot of teams, or a lot of fans around here, fans of the Kansas City Chiefs. And it looks like to me with Roethlisberger out, the Browns still not knowing what they're doing, this is a 2-horse race. It's between the Patriots and the Chiefs, and I know it's 2 weeks in, but both those teams have been very, very dominating. And while the Chargers are 1-1, they're very lucky to be 1-1. They could be 0-2. I don't know if you can trust them, Cassidy, but do you not agree those two teams are clearly the class of the AFC?
Yeah, I think both have just, come out of the gates hot. That's exactly what you want to see. And look, when the Chiefs get going, though, I just don't know if there's a team that can do it better than the way they can on the offensive side of the football. It is incredible how explosive they can be, and how Patrick Mahomes is just got still total complete control of that offense and does some incredible things every week. And Travis Kelce is exactly the guy that we thought he was going to be, and it's been fun to watch.
Here's the thing. If I'm a Chiefs fan, I don't mind Kansas City, actually. I think they proved yesterday they don't have to go out and score 45 points a game to win. I think their defense is adequate enough to get them through some weeks when that offense isn't its usual self. But how about Mahomes? He now has set an NFL record with 7 consecutive games of 3 touchdowns or more. Whew. And you take away 1 quarter yesterday at Oakland, KP, he didn't play great football. Most of his numbers were done in the first half, and most of those were done in 1 quarter.
All of this, he had 4 touchdown passes in the second quarter. I mean, he beat him in 1 quarter. And that's the kind of guy that he is, that he can just snap and go off like that. And if you're another team, the Raiders probably look at themselves in the mirror and look at the film room and say, hey, we played pretty well for 3 quarters. There's 1 quarter where we didn't. And even I was watching some of that. They were playing pretty well. It's just Pat Mahomes being Pat Mahomes. And that Chiefs team, you got to give their receivers credit. I mean, their number 1 guy, Tyreek Hill, goes down. A lot of teams, they'd shut down, and they showed out yesterday. I think I forgot the guy's name, but the receiver for the Chiefs, he had 2 touchdowns yesterday, over 150 yards. So, I mean, they stepped up and balled out when they needed to. So they are a deep, deep team.
Okay, last week we were going to go with this poll. We didn't actually get it posted, so we're going to use the same poll question that we had scheduled for last week. And perhaps, as we talk about our next subject, it's going to become even more applicable this week. Our fan poll question of the week, log on to @VIBELAND Sports on Twitter, and it is, will AB last the entire season in New England? A, yes, B, no. Again, find us on @VIBELAND Sports on Twitter and vote. We like to hear what you think. I would have liked to have almost ran this question 2 weeks in a row, because I think a lot of the votes are going to swing after the latest allegations have been revealed. Now, another lady has come out and claimed sexual misconduct against Antonio Brown. There's lots of reports of debts that are owed. I said last week, before this even was divulged, that he's not going to make it for a year in New England. I still think he's got it between the ears anymore. If there is one place that he can, it is in Foxborough. But I see no way now with these allegations that he survives in New England. They claim the Patriots didn't even vet him all that well, so this is all kind of a surprise to them.
I mean, I don't think he should last, but I think he's going to, because it's the Patriots. It's the Patriot way. He can score them touchdowns. and
But
get
at
them
some point,
points.
it might be out of the Patriots' hands.
It might be, and I think that's the only chance that this happens is Goodell comes in and removes him, and you'll still hear Patriots fans saying that Goodell only did that because he's on the Patriots and he's mistreated the Patriots once again, which some of that I can agree with a little bit, but Patriots fans, you're not going to get sympathy from anybody with your 6 Super Bowls and Tom Brady and Bill Belichick. I'm sorry. You're not getting any sympathy from us. So, yeah, I don't think he's going to make it, but if there's one place he's going to, it's going to be New England because they are real good at looking the other way on multiple occasions, not with misconduct, but within their own organization, and just always trying to get that edge in an extra weird way that you wouldn't think of, Spygate, Deflategate, to name a few.
Yeah, and I mean, last week, obviously part of the pod that was cut out, I was very optimistic about what he was going to do this season before we found out all these allegations and everything started coming out. And so I still think that while he's there, he's going to be very impactful. I just don't think he's going to make it to the end of the season now. So, I mean, I feel so conflicted about even seeing him play, knowing what he's been
It makes me
accused
want
of
to throw
doing.
up in my mouth.
I mean, it's
when he
it's
scored
crazy.
yesterday, it made me want to throw up in my mouth.
It's crazy to me that after all that comes out and he still suits up. And I know it's just allegations, but I mean, come on, Patriots. At some point, you got to say, you just need to not be in the public eye right now, or you don't need to be doing whatever. And I don't care if you still want to give him his game check. Just don't let him on the field. That was a terrible look.
Okay, we talked about will Miami go 0-16. Is this the year that the Patriots again go unbeaten in the regular season? They really, really look good. The regular season matchup with Kansas City is in Foxborough, so they do have that to their advantage.
I don't think it's as ridiculous to talk about as one would probably their first reaction would have been to that comment. That I think it's doable, and I think this year lines up for them with their roster and what's going on around them. The guys that normally get them, guys like the Steelers, they're going to be playing with a backup quarterback. Mason Rudolph is the quarterback for the Steelers for the rest of the year. Like you said, they get the Chiefs at home. It really lines up well for that to happen.
It has opened up in the AFC. Andrew Luck abruptly retires.
Yeah, that's huge.
Roethlisberger is out. The Chargers right now are struggling, and they're in a horrible division.
It's basically Kansas City is their roadblock right now, and they get that game at Foxborough. I think if they're able to win that game, I mean, I think 14-2 for them is probably a disappointing season, as crazy as that sounds.
I think I agree with that because, like we've been talking about today, the NFL, it's just you get your wins when you can, and there seems to be that one weekend that'll just get a team, and the Patriots have been that team that succumbed to that. They're pretty used to that. Happens at least once a year to the Patriots, so it's likely to happen again this year, but at the same time, man, it's just the stars are kind of aligning in a terrible way as an NFL fan. But if you're a Patriot fan, the stars are aligning in your evil world that you may get another undefeated season. I wouldn't be shocked. I would definitely be surprised because it's an incredible feat, but it seems more doable than ever before.
Okay, guys, we've got two things. We've got to have two fan poll questions this week. Okay. The first one, again, is will AB last the entire season in New England? Log on to at VIBELAND Sports on Twitter. A, yes, B, no. The second one,
I think I know where this is
which
going.
happens,
Yep.
the Patriots go 6-0, the Dolphins go, or 16-0, the Dolphins go 0-16, or both happens.
Which is more likely, yeah.
Which is more likely to happen. And we'll put in C for both could happen.
I want to say, too, the year the Patriots went undefeated, was that not the same year as the Lions going 0-16, or was it the Browns? I want to say somebody also went 0-16 that year, but I could be making that up.
You know what's going to be ironic? The Miami Dolphins win one game, and they beat the New England Patriots. And New England goes on to win the Super Bowl, and the franchise that's the only owner of the all-perfect record and their miserable franchise this year denies the New England Patriots history. How great would
Wow.
that be? I'm salivating at the mouth thinking about
Dolphin fans would probably call that a win as compared to what it's shaping out to be right now.
that. Okay, so we're doing two VIBELAND Sports fan poll questions of the week. Will AB last the entire season in New England? A, yes. B, no. Which is most likely to happen? A, Miami goes 0-16. B, New England goes 16-0. Or C, both happen. At VIBELAND Sports on Twitter. Stay tuned. Coming up in segment number 2, we'll talk to the new director of officials for the OSSAA. Grant Gower joins us next. This is VIBELAND Sports, a weekly media presentation of VIBELAND, Inc.
Hi, we are VIBELAND. We are a creative network fostering and cultivating growth amongst a community of artists and innovators.
Here at HQ, we inspire young entrepreneurs to pursue their ideas and fulfill their highest ambitions. From producing albums to shooting multimedia content to our involvement with various charitable organizations within our local community, we seek to empower and spread knowledge through open source innovation.
We here at VIBELAND look forward to the future and hope you will join us on this exciting journey. Create, innovate, educate. VIBELAND.
Welcome back to episode 28 of VIBELAND Sports. I'm Todd Miller. Our guest today is a well-known face and coach from around the state of Oklahoma. He now has stepped away from coaching to focus on his role as director of officials with the OSSAA. He is Grant Gower, the former offensive coordinator at Oklahoma Baptist, longtime educator and head coach at Deer Creek. Coach, always great to have you on.
Thanks so much, Todd. Guys, it's always great visiting with you and excited for the podcast, meeting with VIBELAND. I'm really, really excited about this, man. Appreciate the opportunity to visit.
Okay, it's still early in the season. I know you love what you're doing, but have you not missed football just a little?
Yes, sir. I would not be honest if I didn't say I didn't miss it. I'm obviously still in it with obviously the officials and still going to games and, still being involved in that capacity. But, there's that excitement of game planning and preparation and film study. And more importantly is the interaction with those student athletes, those young men that I've gotten to coach, for literally 35 years that, I miss that aspect of it. Love the job, love what I'm doing now, but you're right. There is a little bit of, not any remorse, but I do miss that portion of it.
Well, can I say there's remorse on this end? Is that fair?
Well, I do miss getting to see you and Brooksy and Scott and Casady and everybody on a regular basis. And obviously the coaching staff there at OBU, just great men, great coaches. And I miss those guys as well. Fortunately, I do get to see, everybody periodically, but obviously not day to day like it has been.
Okay, I want to back up because this happened rather quickly for you, did it not? And it happened in the summer. You actually started in mid-July with the OSSAA. How did this all abruptly come about?
Well, it was one of those things that when the position came open, I had several people that contacted me and said, "Hey, you would be perfect for the job as director of officials." Because I officiated basketball for 24 years, and of course, coached for 35, and athletic director, administrator, all that process. And so I had several people say, "Man, you'd be perfect for that." So started visiting, and then contacted them there at the association, and we sat down and visited there late June is actually when it materialized, and accepted the position the end of June, first part of July, and started there July 15th.
It's fair to say that this is kind of an exciting time to be part of the OSSAA. Great leadership and a lot of things transitioning to kind of a new era in high school sports in Oklahoma.
Oh, it is, Todd. I'm telling you, that's one of the things leaving OBU, as far as the staff, the men, and everyone associated with the university, great people there. But here at the association, where I am now, just fantastic people to get to work with. You talk about David Jackson, the executive director, and Mike Weather, the associate director, and of course all the other assistant directors and our staff that we have. Just great people. And most importantly, that's one of the things. That's why I'm glad we're getting to visit, Todd, because there's so many times the image or the thought that the OSSAA is sometimes viewed as the bad guy, if you will. But everyone associated with the association, I mean, just tremendous people, and have at their heart and at the core is what's best for high school athletics and high school activities. And that's what the exciting part is as far as, the transition time and continuing to move forward with activities in Oklahoma.
I'm sure you're still kind of getting ingrained into your new position. You haven't been there all that long, about a month and a half, but high school football is about 3 weeks old. What is the most difficult part of your job on a weekly basis, would you say?
There's always something to deal with. And not that it's difficult. There's just a lot that is under the duties of this particular position. As director of officials, I'm over particularly football, basketball, baseball, and so that turns into playoff time as far as assignments of those, and obviously administration of that aspect of it. So that will really begin to ramp up as we start approaching playoff time later in the season. But right now, this part of it with all the regular season games is trying to get to several games and seeing a lot of the crews that we've got. I mean, they do a great job around the state, and as well as dealing with that. But it's also the basketball. We start basketball rules meetings coming up in literally just a few weeks, and then matter of fact, dealt with some baseball rules for the spring. But the other component of this position is I'm the director of the baseball championships, so I've got fall baseball and spring baseball as well. And obviously, fall baseball is huge in Oklahoma with the success and the history and tradition of fall baseball in the state. And so those playoffs actually begin in the first part of October. So it's pretty busy. That's probably the the thing as you talked about, just month and a half, 2 months now, and it's been a whirlwind. It's been busy, but it's been exciting.
Grant Gower, Director of Officiating for the OSSAA, is our guest here on episode 28 of VIBELAND Sports. Grant, you come in at really a pivotal time, I think, because there is a crisis, a full-blown crisis, not only in Oklahoma, but across the country with a shortage of officials.
Oh, you're right, Todd. And that's why, again, another reason I'm thankful to get to visit and address that, because that's one of the things that I've been very fortunate to get to speak at various and sundry events and functions and different interviews and things that to get the message out there, because I think so many times there is the men and women in the striped shirts that officiate and umpire and call all the games that are out there. I think there's such an idea that, well, they're not people, for one, but it's also that there is this dwindling supply that, as more veteran officials begin to get out of it, there's not that pool of younger officials that are coming in. And so that's been it's been a common thread that I've tried to spread everywhere around the state. Literally has been recruiting new officials coming into all of our sports, from volleyball to softball to wrestling to obviously the others as well. And so that's one of the things that been very, very aware of, is trying to address some of those issues. And as we kind of discuss a little bit more, I'll go into a bit more detail as far as what some of those issues are. But that's one of the things is communicating. It is truly at a crisis level, to the point of some games even having to be moved because of a shortage of officials in certain areas of the state. Some games, maybe it's a softball game, instead of having two officials there for a junior varsity and middle school game, there's only one there. And that's the unfortunate thing for those student athletes out there on the field.
You know, as long as there's been competitive sports, there's always been fans in the stands that know how to coach better than the coach or officiate better than the officials. You know that. And you probably know better than anybody because you've been in both positions. But how has the job of officiating changed for the worse?
It's the social media aspect of it, whether that is the Facebook, the Twitter things that uh, all of a sudden everyone has, something they can post. And so many times things that are posted are not always in a positive light or positive vein. And usually it's something negative or detrimental or derogatory towards officials whenever it comes down to that. And I think that's one of the biggest ways that it's changed, as well as, not to be too societally in, affected on this, but it is, I think, a reflection of society. Simply, there is kind of the thought process of people feeling like they can say and voice about anything they want to. And in reality, that's that's not the right thing to be able to do. And I think that's how some things have changed, whether it's just cultural influences or social media influences.
Okay, there's only so much, in my opinion, that Grant Gower and the OSSAA can do to help this. Do you not agree with me? And you and I kind of talked about this last week at lunch. The education has to start with the schools and at the grassroots level.
You're spot on, and that's one of the things as I was mentioning and talking with all the different organizations. I was able to speak with the Football Coach Association, the Baseball Coach Association, Basketball Coaches Association, during July, and trying to stress that, because as you mentioned, I mean, I've seen it through both lenses, as an official and as a coach. And there are ways to disagree with officials. I mean, as a coach, and of course you saw and called a lot of football games, on air. I didn't agree with everything that was called or not called, whatever the case may be. But I never got a penalty or an ejection at all in my career, and mainly it was because of dealing with those officials as people and as human beings. Because I think too often that is lost, and so that's been the message I've tried to communicate to a lot of those, to those coaches is, yes, it's okay to disagree, but just go about it in the right manner.
Grant Gower, Director of Officials for the OSSAA in Oklahoma City, is our guest here on episode 28 of VIBELAND Sports. I say there's so much you can do. You obviously had to have a little bit of a plan in your mind to execute, I would think, to somewhat alleviate the severity of this crisis when you took the job. What are those ideas that Grant Gower has and maybe like to implement going forward?
Thanks, Todd. This is one of those, actually, is every opportunity that I have and get to speak, whether it's on air interview, whether it's at any event. And I've been very fortunate to get to speak at very at a lot of places throughout the state, to bring this literally crisis level out in the forefront of recruiting those officials. So that's kind of one of the methods. The other one, I was able to speak up at OSU a few weeks ago, to some of one of the classes up there, and encourage some of the college students, because as a college student, and it's a great way to stay involved with their sport, once they either complete their degree and are getting out, or while they're in college currently. So those are some, just another one of those mechanisms that I've been able to utilize, as well as targeting what would be those graduating high school seniors. I've had that discussion with, again, a lot of the coaches, football, basketball, baseball coaches, that targeting those young men and young women that are graduating and entering into what would be their freshman year of college or outside if they're not pursuing a degree. It's a great way to become involved and stay involved in the game that they grew up playing. And so those are just a couple of the methods as well. The other thing we've got going is we've got a mentorship program that we have some of our more veteran officials that mentor and take under their wing some of our younger officials and work with them on a direct basis as well. Another program that we've got going is what's called the Ambassador Program, where our officials will go out to the high schools, like specifically basketball, let's say, and they will basically go through some of the things with those high school student athletes and exhibit that. Matter of fact, I just found out that in our one of our local associations in the southeastern part of the state, they had a basketball meeting last week, and they've got 11 new candidates. When I say candidates, 11 new possibilities just in that region, in that area, and that's as a direct result of the Ambassador Program.
Is pay something that's an issue too in Oklahoma? I don't know where our officials stand in terms of pay compared to schools around the region, but is that something you maybe talk to the member schools about? Is, hey, maybe we need to bump up pay a little bit for what these guys are subjected to?
It is always a discussion of increasing officials' pay. During the regular season, the pay is set by the school districts or some of the conferences that they may be working in. Playoffs are set by association, which are pretty much parallel that. But pay is definitely a factor and something to consider in the whole process. It's just, quite honestly, I think the bigger issue is, just like you mentioned, is more the treatment of officials, and obviously for what they get paid, none of them are getting rich. None of us have, it's a nice little source of income, but no one is getting rich and is going to make a living doing it, at the high school level. And so, as much as we could increase pay, everyone would sure love to do that, and hopefully that would help draw a few more people in.
One of the things I asked you about last week, and you said that it's going to be up now to a lot of the site administrators to get rid of some of these people in the stands that are causing problems. Is it not a concern not only for you, but maybe even for the administrator, the threat of violence? It's just, I hate to talk about it, but that's the way our society is. Are people maybe afraid a little bit to enforce some things to help protect officials because of the threat of violence against them?
Yeah, that is, I think that is very real, because of that is unfortunately kind of a reflection of our society. And so the administrators with the campus resource officer or the local police force or sheriff's deputies, whoever is involved for the security and safety at that venue, it is a very real situation, as you mentioned, because all you have to do is just, and as I talked about Facebook and some of the posts, I've seen some posts. I saw some today of some video, of around the country of, for lack of a better word, assaults on officials. And, that's just, unfortunately, a reflection of our society.
I know there's a lot of things you think about, and you're about as positive of a person as I've ever seen. So I'm sure I'm going to get probably a positive answer for you on this. When you look at the game conduct by student athletes in Oklahoma, and do you look at the officiating problem in Oklahoma, is it better, would you say, on the average than it is even in our region, let alone across the United States?
I objectively, I really think so. And I think several reasons for that. If you compare it across the board from one state to another, or from this region of the country to another, I think that what you may run across is I think the level of the people in Oklahoma across the board it is top notch as far as the way that the passion is there but for the most part, there is some sensibility there. And you can't make any blanket statement at any point with, this region or that state or anything else. But I think comparatively speaking, in Oklahoma, we are very passionate about our athletics and activities, and that's a good thing, because there are other states where it is not as important, and it's not as as big of a deal as it is here. So I think that is comparatively, we're in the state maybe better, if you will, than other states.
Where do you see this thing going, the tipping point, one way or the other? And what happens if this trend does not reverse with fewer and fewer officials wanting to be involved in high school sports?
I'm glad you asked that one. The tipping point will be whenever we have many, many games that have to be either moved because of lack of officials, or not even played because of lack of officials. In certain parts of the state, particularly out and you're very familiar with northwestern Oklahoma and the distances that are out there.
Mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, there are some situations out there, just because of travel and the number of available officials to work some of those games, they're having to shuffle some things. And I think whenever that hits close to home to a lot of people, that's when you'll see that, literally, that tipping point that says, you know what, we have got to make some of these changes that we've been talking about in order for games to be played. Because obviously, if there's not those men and women out there in the striped shirts officiating those and umpiring and administering those games, then those games won't take place.
One of the other aspects of your job, and you kind of alluded to this, is you're kind of over baseball for the OSSAA. I know that that's a passion for you. You played baseball in college, which shocked me when I heard that. One guy I know said you throw the best batting practice of any coach he's ever had. Are you glad to be back and involved with high school baseball again?
I am. I actually do lead America in BP home runs allowed. Because
that's a good thing.
Or a bad thing, depending on how we're going to look at it, right? No, it was always good, because I can actually Cassidy Fletcher, his dad and I, we played ball together. We won't say how many years ago this is for any of us, but
I'll be darned, anyway, I didn't know Terry was that old.
Well played. So I don't know who that makes older, me, Terry, Cassidy, or you, Todd. I'm not sure who.
I know who feels older every day, and I'll take that. I'll wear that crown.
No, it is one of the things that is really exciting for me, because I had baseball coach for 16, 18 years, whatever it was, and all this process, and reconnecting with many of those coaches in baseball that I coached against, either played against, again, back in college or even high school, or in many instances that I had hired as so my assistant coaches back many years ago that are now head coaches throughout the state. And so that's been great, reconnecting with them. And like I say, kind of like you said, it's interesting, some of the newer, younger, whatever, that literally aren't as old as I am, not really knowing that facet, because thinking, coaching there at OBU for the past few years and being a head football coach, it's kind of, he must just only know football. But it's been really neat to reconnect with all the baseball coaches, and we've got, matter of fact, we are right in the middle of redistricting for baseball. We'll start that process where it's ongoing, but we'll have some committee meetings next week for baseball redistricting for Class 6A, 5A, 4A, and then 3A and 2A are going to district play as well. So a lot of exciting things on that aspect of it that I'm really, really excited to be a part of.
All right, last question for you. I'm a young guy. I decide maybe I want to help out with this problem of a shortage of officials in our state. What's the first step in the process that they need to go through to help out?
Oh, great, man. Go OSSAA.com. That's our website, OSSAA.com. and you can go there, and there's a link for officials on there. You just click on the officials tab. It's got all the information on how to go about and become an official in any sport. It doesn't make a difference whether it's football, basketball, baseball. It can be wrestling, volleyball, any of the sports here in the state. So all that to say, that's where the best spot to go. Or of course, they can call our offices, 405-840-1116. And of course, we can assist them that way as well. But they can go to OSSAA.com, click on the officials tab, and find all the information that they would need to know.
I appreciate you, my friend. Great interview today. Lots and lots of good information. This is, I want to say, an epidemic, and it's not just Oklahoma. It's all 50 states, and it's much, much more severe in a lot of places than it is in Oklahoma. Let's do this again, but let's have a different topic. Let's not talk about this. Let's talk about good things. How about that?
Hey, I'm with you all the way, Todd. I always love visiting with you, man. And we'll do it again on some other topic, whatever you want to talk about in sports, man. It's always great stuff.
Then again, we might just hire you, put you on this podcast.
No. Hey, you've got too big of shoes for me to fill. That is for sure.
Well,
so
if it makes you feel better, Grant, I'm wearing flip-flops tonight. So
even better. That's great.
Thank you, my friend, and we'll be in touch soon.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate you.
Grant Gower, the Director of Officials for the OSSAA here in Oklahoma City. We'll be back and have our final segment of episode 28 of VIBELAND Sports in just a moment. Back for our final segment of episode 28. Hard to believe we've been together 28 weeks and nobody's been harmed injuring this show. It's pretty remarkable. 2 VIBELAND fan poll questions of the week. Will AB last the entire season in New England? A, yes. B, no. Also, which is most likely to happen this year? A, Miami goes 0-16. B, New England finishes 16-0. Or C, both happen. Well, I have a moment. Thank you again to Grant Gower. What a great guy he is. Director of Officials for the OSSAA, for coming on here, our podcast, and visiting with us again about something, guys, that is really, really a problem. And it's not just Oklahoma. It's across the United States. KP, you alluded to this a moment ago, and we need to address it real quick, and then we're going to talk about NFL officiating. Speaking of officials, congratulations to former Cowboy Mason Rudolph. He's going to get his chance. And you wonder if this isn't the beginning of the end for Roethlisberger in Pittsburgh. And I say that not right now that Rudolph is better than he is. He maybe eventually will be. But keep in mind, when you miss almost a full year at his age, it becomes more and more difficult to bounce back.
And if Mason Rudolph is the guy that the Steelers drafted him to be, I think it's going to be tough for them to go back to Roethlisberger. They drafted him to be his successor, and they drafted him knowing that Big Ben is injury-prone. They probably didn't want him to get him in there this early if they had their wits about him and got to choose. They probably would have liked him to sit back and learn a little bit more. But he had a full rookie season under Ben. He had a full 2 full training camps under Ben, and now 2 games in this season. I think he's ready to step up, and I think his teammates believe in him too. That's the thing that I'm getting out of the stories that I'm reading so far. He was doing an interview today. One of his teammates ran up behind him and yelled, "Tell him you built for this, blank. Mace, tell him that you're built for this." And so his guys got his back, and I mean, if I'm a guy going into my first career NFL start, it'd probably make me feel a little bit better too, looking out to my right or my left and seeing a guy that caught the majority of my touchdown passes in my life since I've been a 18-year-old high school kid coming to Stillwater. Looking over there's James Washington. That's another hot fantasy tip. If you don't have James Washington on your roster, go pick him up because he's about to be the Steelers' number 1 wide receiver. Sorry, Juju. But
I'm not buying that.
I don't buy that either, but I think James is going to get more targets than he did with Ben. There's no doubt about that.
He's going to get more targets because he's opposite Schuster's.
That's one thing too, but
whoever's the number 2 guy there, Juju got it when Antonio Brown was there.
That's true.
Just the way it works.
Mason's going to be way more comfortable.
But you're right. Those 2 in preseason look very good.
Absolutely. Their comfortability together, their chemistry that they already have, they don't have to worry about building that. I think Mason's got an excellent opportunity in front of him, and I'm going to be watching Oklahoma State the Steelers, as much as I possibly can. As soon as James and Mason got drafted there, I said I'm going to be paying a lot more attention when it's his time. I'm excited for it to be his time and to see what he does with this opportunity.
Well, that's why I follow the Ravens a little more closely.
Right? It's fun.
The honestly, yeah.
It's the Ravens.
Hey, I'm still sticking by my pick. I picked the Browns to win the division.
Hey, I did too.
We'll see.
It's not looking real good right now,
Hey,
but
tonight, you ready to the town will be set on fire if they go 0-2.
Oh man.
The hot takes Colin Coward will come up with tomorrow if the Browns lose tonight.
okay. I've got to admit, I didn't watch a full Sunday of NFL action yesterday, but I have kind of caught up and watched some replays and done some things like that to understand that while week 1 I thought was a pretty good week for officiating in the NFL, I don't know that week 2 was. And the reason that we have this problem is because of a rule that was instituted after the debacle in the NFC Championship game last year, and that is reviewing pass interference calls. It's to the stage that if you watch a long pass play, you sit there and go, I don't know if that really counted yet or not. They're going to have to review it. And my problem with it is it's making the game very difficult to watch because it's choppy and it lengthens it because of all the reviews. You could call pass interference or holding on every single play, probably about any level of football, certainly in the NFL. What's you guys' thoughts on the officiating? Because I did not think they had a good day yesterday, but the rule that they've put in has opened the doors for this to happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely adding time to the game. I'm not a big fan of that. But, yeah, I've noticed more, too, that the receivers at the end of the play or the corners, they're not just looking for the flag on the ground. Then they're looking to their coach to see if there's a challenge flag. Like you said, Todd, it's just making it choppy. And I was noticing watching some games yesterday, like, the difference in the games where it was they started at the same time, but one game's ending and the other game's got 5 minutes left, which in NFL time is about half an hour. So it's ridiculous how much longer this is adding to the games. And I think some of the coaches are using it as an extra timeout strategy too. You
know what I don't like about it? It's turning the NFL into the NBA.
Yes.
We can't have 2 or 3 or 4 successive trips up and down the court without there being 1 or 2 fouls called. Mm-hmm. So now we're getting to that point because of this new rule of reviewing pass interference that it's happened to the NFL. It's chopped the game up. It's not fun to watch.
Yeah, and I don't know. Yeah, it removes that joy that you have as a fan, when you see a big play. Now, like you're saying, you're thinking, well, I hope that passes the review.
Yeah.
You're not, your first instinct anymore is even to celebrate
I never
a
get
big play.
That excited. I sit there and watch if that little yellow icon pops up, then it's just over. And you hate it for the players too. You see these guys that work hard all week and they're getting to celebrate and they're going nuts. And some guys, it's their first career touchdown, so they're going extra hard.
Not.
And they're looking around behind them and go, "Oh man, that doesn't count." It sucks. I hate that.
It's bad. Don't like it, but I don't like the rule, and I think that has created a lot of problems for NFL officials. But yesterday, just too many flags in general.
Yes.
Just chopped the game up and really made it tough to watch.
So let's not do that anymore.
All right, let's move on to college football. The Oklahoma Sooners moved to 3-0. Very impressive. 48-14 at UCLA. And as much about talking about OU, I want to talk about UCLA. How on earth does UCLA become so pathetic? And how can you not draw spectators to the Rose Bowl to watch a football game? Guys, there were more OU fans there in watching what I saw of the game than there were Bruins fans. And they were giving tickets away to that game.
Wow.
What a sad sack that Chip Kelly and UCLA Bruin football has become.
Yeah, it's unfortunate to see because Chip Kelly that was a hot name in coaching just more than a few years ago now. But guys, he was the standard.
He did himself in by going to the NFL.
Yep, and his offense was the standard. That was the new hot West Coast offense, the Chip Kelly offense that people were trying to emulate and recreate. And yeah, he has just been, a sham of himself in terms of what they're putting out there. And UCLA football, there are some, look at that alumni that they have put in the NFL. There are some great names. There are some great players there that I'm sure are really disappointed with their alma mater and how they're turning football out. It's sad to see because when UCLA football is the old UCLA USC games, that's great football to watch. And it hasn't been a great game in a long time.
But you know what? The whole Pac-12 stinks.
Yeah.
It's a horrible, horrible league.
But even then, how can you not recruit to UCLA?
I know.
I mean,
Right.
come on.
Gundy's getting 5 stars to go to, or not 5 stars. He's getting top recruits to go to Stillwater, Oklahoma. I love that town with a passion, but it's nowhere. It's pretty to recruit me to Los Angeles. Yeah, that's pretty easy to sell that campus real quick.
Not too hard.
Although I'm going to tell you, I'd soon visit L.A. as Stillwater. I think I'd rather live in Stillwater than Los Angeles, because if you spent much time at L.A., well, it's a great city, world-class city. You're ready to get the heck out of there after about 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
You can at least go back to Stillwater or wherever and breathe and be able to drive your car and not have people flipping you off and waving guns at you. And I mean, it's just, LA's a great city. Love to visit, but boy, I want to get the heck out of there.
Only guys waving guns at you in Stillwater is our mascot. And he's shooting them in the air after touchdown.
That's kind
so
of
he's safe.
terrifying. When you think
Sooners
about it.
beat the Bruins 48-14 before a partisan OU crowd at the Rose Bowl. Jalen Hurts, just amazing. He has now thrown more touchdown passes than incomplete passes this season.
Jeez.
Now, if anybody,
Hold on. Say that again, though, so to make sure that people don't just, like...
he has
mishear
thrown
that.
more
accounted
touchdown
for.
passes,
Accounted for
more touchdowns than he has thrown incomplete passes this season. Thank you. Accounted for more touchdowns.
13 touchdowns, 12 incompletions.
How good is Lincoln Riley?
It's unbelievable.
Now, I will tell you this. Back on
That's
Chip
crazy.
Kelly, I don't care how great of a mind you are. When you go to the NFL, you're going to have some success. Cliff Kingsbury will have some success for a while. But those people across the hall in the defensive rooms, they're just as good as you are on the defensive side of the football. They find ways to eventually stop what you're doing. It happened to Chip Kelly. I bet it happens to Kingsbury. And if Lincoln Riley decides to go to the NFL, they'll find out ways to slow him down. The defensive coordinators in the NFL are very, very impressive people. And so, I don't know. But it is amazing how good Lincoln Riley is.
It's unreal. I think, guys, when the history is told and the story is told, I think they're going to go back and there's going to be a run of Heismans that they're going to say Lincoln Riley was his head coach. Lincoln Riley was his head coach.
You wonder when this is going to end. Because seriously, he can get any quarterback, or should be able to get any quarterback he wants to go to Norman and play. Well, if you're very good,
if you're the best quarterback, you want to go
and
play
you're
at the
coached
best
by
place,
that man,
I mean,
And it's not just what he's won back-to-back Heisman trophies, or he's coached back-to-back Heisman Trophy winners, I should say. But then they've also gone on and been drafted number 1 overall in the NFL.
Yeah.
So it's about look what you can do at the next level. Now OU's starting to get some of those really, really high draft picks again. I there for a little bit hadn't really had
but
number 1
quarterbacks, that
overalls.
position, like Lincoln Riley, there's going to be history made about Lincoln Riley's quarterbacks.
It's crazy.
It's going to be. I mean, they said it last year at the NFL draft. It was the night of the second round. They had Lincoln Riley on set, and they go, Lincoln, what do you do when you walk into a recruit's house nowadays? If you're walking
Didn't
into
have
a
to do
house
anything.
to a quarterback's recruit, and he goes, I tell him, do you watch the NFL draft? Do you watch the last 2 of those? Why don't you come play for me? That's a pretty good sell. The last 2, you watch the last 2 NFL drafts? Oh, those guys that won the Heisman, that won number 1 overall, yeah, they played for me. So you want to do the same thing? You come play for me.
I'm still telling you what.
The sales pitch is done and over.
There are
pretty
people
strong.
that are sworn that Lincoln Riley's going to the NFL after this year. And maybe he is. I don't know. I don't know why you want to, unless you just absolutely get bored in college. He is going to make top NFL dollars at OU. He gets to recruit whoever he wants. There's a lot of egos in these Power 5 blue blood programs, but not like there are in a lot of these NFL teams. Until you're absolutely bored to death, I don't know why you go to the NFL.
Right.
Because back in the day, it used to be, like, let's say when Barry Switzer was coaching in the 80s, there was a huge difference between what college coaches got paid and what top-notch NFL coaches got paid.
It was a big stepping stone.
Not
for him.
anymore.
Step up.
Not anymore. He's making already about as much money as almost anybody in the NFL probably right now. So, I don't know. If
And
I
you're
were
gonna
him,
be-
I'd just continue to dominate.
Yeah, I mean,
But I know what this side of the room hopes.
No, I mean, yeah, Lincoln Riley will be the next head coach of the Dallas Cowboys. That's what I hope. And I'm not. Yeah, no, that's what I hope for real. I think his offense, and I don't know. I've been saying that for a while, but tone's a little bit different. Kellen Moore, I'm really happy with how the Cowboys are looking right now. So let me backpedal a little bit. But back to what you said, Todd. If you're not only as a head coach in the college football, do you have more money now? The power and control that you have. He is the king of Norman. I mean, if you're the head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, yeah, like that's great, but you don't like run an institution. You don't get access to the gyms, the notoriety, the donors, just that people aren't taking you out, paying thousands and thousands of dollars to win an auction to have dinner with you. You know, that's the life of a college coach. I think there's a little bit more grind and grime, but there also is a little bit more glamour to it, especially at a place like OU.
Although if there
Alabama.
is one job, and there's probably a couple, 3 of them in the NFL, that would mirror being at a blue blood program, but it's the Dallas Cowboys.
I bet you Jerry Jones could convince you that's the
I
lifestyle.
think he could do all
I bet
right.
his checkbook opens up
I
pretty
just,
big for
again,
Lincoln.
it all goes back to what I said. I just think Lincoln doesn't make that jump until he's tired of college. Mm-hmm. I mean,
And he's
that
still-
job's always going to be in the NFL. And I just, there's,
And if you think
that's
he's
a
still-
whole different duck.
He's still fairly new to this big time Power 5 college football.
right. I mean, and look, I'm just going to throw this out there too. He's made it to 2 college football playoffs and is 0-2. So he's got to
You're
prove
right.
that
We're
he can
talking
do
this
it.
big game. He is yet to. He's
I
won
don't think
Big
he
12.
leaves until he wins a national title.
Bingo. That's
And that
exactly
could
right.
be
I think.
again, his offensive genius can take them very, very far.
And now
The
that
defense
there's
is- that's what it is.
Yeah. Now that there's been a major change on the defensive side, I mean, their whole mentality, same guys as last year,
Mm-hmm.
are going out and looking like just killers. And I know, again, another big asterisk, the Sooners have not played
yet.
anybody, but they
By
just,
the way, Houston's not bad, guys.
yeah,
They
but they're-
almost beat Washington State.
Yeah.
true. That's true.
But I don't
And-
think there hasn't been a nobody, I don't think, in the Big 12 has played. I'm talking like a college football playoff quality.
maybe
no.
maybe
offensive
LSU and
defense.
Texas.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, Oklahoma State, a big win, 40-21 at Tulsa. I say a big win. That game
Ah.
never should have been that close. I'm going to start with KP on this deal. First of all, you were not happy with the way the setup was.
No, I mean,
In Tulsa.
I went to the game as a fan. I thought, Tulsa's fans were great. It was awesome to be an away fan there. But at the same time, it just felt like Tulsa, I don't know if they were unprepared for the weather or the crowd load, but man, I mean, I'm talking, we go to the game 30 minutes before kickoff, and I don't even make it to my seat by kickoff because there was such a delay at all the lines getting into the stadium. Every line that you went to go get water or a drink, which, by the way, it was like dangerously hot. It was like there were medical personnel treating people having heat strokes hot, and they just weren't prepared.
And you're
to
with a
handle
pregnant
it.
wife.
And I'm with a pregnant wife, so it was rough all the way around. I'm still sunburnt and tired from Saturday. And we didn't even stay the whole game because of the weather. The heat was so extreme. And honestly, like I hate to make an excuse, but I mean, both teams were playing in the same heat, but that was the only thing that made sense for OSU's slow start on offense. I mean, not slow start, slow after the first 5 minutes of the game. The start was anything but slow. First play, 75-yard touchdown, which, by the way, I didn't see because I was late getting in. I walked into the game, 10 seconds had played off the clock, and we were already up 6-0. It was frustrating. But then after that, the offense just slowed down, couldn't do anything. Just 3 and out. Spencer Sanders kept going for the deep ball, and it wasn't working. I mean, it did seem, though, Tulsa's strategy for guarding Tylan Wallace was a good strategy that I think other teams should play, and it's just tackle him before the ball gets there. Just, I mean, 15-yard pass interference is better than the 50 yards that he was about to gain. I'm half joking, but I'm half serious. I mean, the plays that there's 3 times that he got tackled before that. He had 4 PI calls just on him.
I've always said in college football, I don't know why you don't do that if you're beat.
No,
Yeah.
Because it's not a spot foul like it is in the NFL.
Right, and if they started doing that, they would make it a spot foul, and then it would go right back to the way it is now.
Yeah.
So
I mean, on
I'd
one
love
of
to see
them,
the change though.
Tylan. So I would say like there was probably 2 of those that were probably touchdowns. One of those 4 was a touchdown, 90-yard touchdown pass. He got PI'd and he still caught the ball and took it 90 yards of the house. So that was impressive. But like you said, Todd, you just take the 15 yards because I think that game is the scoreboard 40-21. That's not as close as it was closer than that. OSU was losing at halftime, but again, it's Tulsa, but you still have to give props to the defense. It's 21-20 at halftime. OSU scores 20 unanswered points in the second half. Well needed, but they did shut Tulsa down, which isn't saying much. But they still shut them down in the second half, and offense stepped up when they needed to. Chubu Hubbard with another monster game. 32 carries, so just the bell cow. 32 carries, 256 yards, and 3 touchdowns. So it goes over 200 again for the second time this season. And on that late 4th and 3, we hand him the ball, and he takes it, I think, 35 to the house to put the nail in the coffin there. But a little scarier than you'd like to see. Not what you want to see going into Texas and going into conference play. They need to play different, but I'd like to say we blame it on the weather because it was brutal to be out there.
Yeah, it was a tough night. It was swampy where I was at in southern Arkansas, as Casady can attest to. This time of the year, that's not the best place to be.
Not at all.
Okay, one more thing. I want your thoughts on this game. Ohio State, Nebraska, in Lincoln.
In Lincoln.
Is this the game that Scott Frost puts the Huskers back on the map?
I don't think so. Not yet. I think this is the game that they play Ohio State close enough where the Husker faithful can walk away confident about just like how they feel today, confident about where the program's moving, and it's going to be a sign that they're going in a step in the right direction. But I don't think it's the win yet.
But
I don't
at what
think they're there
point does
yet.
the Nebraska faithful stop saying, I'm happy in the direction the program's going? This is year number 2.
I think in the Scott Frost era, I think by the end of this season, the expectation is going to be where Scott Frost wants it. I think next year, the losses to teams they shouldn't be losing to are deemed more unacceptable with bad reactions from the fan base. I think that starts next year. I think last year was kind of man, you're dealing with guys that aren't your players, and you're doing the best you can. This year, you've got your players. You've had last year to work through. Year 3, I think, is when people may start turning on him.
Are you going to try to get into your onesie, Nebraska onesie?
My mom's already asked me if my baby's coming home in that one, but I told her.
Is it?
No, it'll be orange. He'll be leaving the hospital.
See, that's what's happening in
orange.
Nebraska football. They're leaving Lincoln to go to Stillwater.
Well, he's
what a sad state that is.
This baby, he better be an OSU fan too, because the reason he exists is because of OSU. I met my wife in Stillwater, so that's how he was made, and so he needs to remember that.
Being born into the world by them.
Hey,
oh my gosh!
You already know he's gonna be smart.
Yeah, because Rashika's real smart.
Yeah, I mean, he's got a 50-50 shot.
You know, if this baby has very little of Kelby in it and a lot of Rashika, it'll be a home run to the world.
There you go, right? Success awaits.
All right, that's going to wrap up episode 28. We're going to remind you, don't forget we have a couple of VIBELAND fan poll questions of the week. The first, pretty simple. Will A, B last the entire season in New England? A, yes, B, no, at VIBELAND Sports on Twitter to cast your vote. Our second poll question of the week is something we talked about a little bit on our show. Which is most likely to happen in the NFL this season? Is it A, Miami goes winless at 0-16, B, does New England finish a perfect regular season at 16-0, or C, does both happen? At VIBELAND Sports on Twitter for your votes. Don't forget, if you haven't already done so, subscribe to our podcast, Apple Podcast, and Spotify, and you'll never miss a minute of your 3 favorite Stooges. Guys, all the time we have. See you again next week, God willing, the creek don't rise.
I'll be here if I'll be here.
I think he was going to say if OSU beats Texas, I was going to say, well, we'll get a sub for him next
I didn't
week.
have anything clever to say. I was like, I got something. No, just swing and a miss on that one.
Okay, for
try again
Casady,
next week.
For Casady and KP, I'm Todd Miller. VIBELAND Sports is a weekly presentation of VIBELAND Media.